he's of nuclear power, but we got along. I think he'll be happy to see him coming back.
And
I think he has tremendous condo capability. He's got a lot of shoreline.
Thank you, sir.
Are you going to work with countries from South America to coordinate on immigration?
About who?
About immigration in general.
This is an executive order. Sorry, sir.
I'm fine with legal immigration. I like it. We need people, and I'm absolutely fine with it. We want to have it. We need it because we're going to have a in the U.S., so we're going to have a lot of workers coming in, but we have to have legal immigration.
Do you have a date in mind for when you want to China tariffs that you're talking
Which
about?
one?
60%?
No? You're talking about which? Say it again.
The China tariffs, the broad
Oh, China?
tariffs?
Well, as you know, I put on large tariffs on China, and they've really been forced to leave them. And if we didn't leave them, you wouldn't have one steel mill that's open in this country because they were dumping massive amounts of steel. We've taken in hundreds of billions of dollars from China because they were unable to terminate the tariffs I put on China because it was too much money and the budgets didn't work, and other reasons too. No, I mean, we're going to have meetings and calls with President Xi. I spoke to President Xi last week, as you know. Did you know that? I had a very good phone call.
But please come with NATO at this moment. Are you planning to meet your NATO allies?
No, NATO has to pay more money. NATO has to pay 5%. We're in the Ukraine war by $200 billion more than NATO. It's pushing in between. And we've spent $200 billion more on Ukraine than NATO has spent. And they've got to equalize.
Did you talk
How can
to
you
Xi
pressure
about? Did you talk to Xi about the Ukraine war?
Yeah.
Because China and Brazil together has a proposal to bring Russia and Ukraine to talk.
That's good. That's fine. I'm ready.
When are you going
That's
to talk
good.
with the Brazilian president?
How did Brazil get involved?
Brazil's involved.
This is a new one.
When are you going to talk to Lula?
Are you from Brazil?
I'm from Brazil.
Ah,
When are you talking?
that's why they're involved, I guess.
When are you going to talk with the Brazilian president? How do you see our relationship with Latin America and Brazil?
Great. Should be great. They need us much more than we need them. We don't need them. They need us. Everybody needs us.
This is
Mr. President, it sounds like you will not proceed with additional China tariffs necessarily, depending on how talks go with President Xi. Is that correct?
What does that define that?
Well, we are asking, you pledged in the campaign potentially a 10% tariff on China or as much as
Because
60%.
of fentanyl.
Right. So I'm asking where
That's
your
only
thoughts
because of
are.
fentanyl. There are other things too.
Are additional
And a
China
very
tariffs-
big thing is the Panama Canal. China controls the Panama Canal. What's that all about? They're not supposed to be good. When Jimmy Carter gave it, which was a terrible mistake, he didn't do it. He didn't give it to China. He gave it to Panama. And China controls the Panama Canal.
So are China tariffs
And
still
we're not
on the
going to
table?
allow that to happen.
Are they still on the table or is that?
We're not, no, we're not.
Thank you, sir.
What can we expect of the countries in NATO that spend the least amount of money, like Spain, France, below the 5%?
Spain is very low. And yet, are they a BRICS nation?
What?
They're a BRICS nation, Spain.
How is
You know what a BRICS nation is? Well, you'll figure it out. But, and if the BRICS nations want to do that, that's okay, but we're going to put at least a 100% tariff on the business they do with the United States. You know what the BRICS is, right? You guys know.
Brazil,
You know what I'm
Russia.
saying, right? You know what I'm saying.
Sir,
Spain is not
this
in
is
the
an
BRICS.
So
this
it's
is
not even a threat. In fact, since I made that statement, Biden said, well, they have us over a barrel. I said, no, we have them over a barrel. And there's no way they're going to be able to do that.
this is an executive.
Yes.
But how
They'll
is
have a
that
100% tariff if they so much as even think about doing what they thought.
Can you explain how is
Which, and therefore they'll give it up immediately. So will China give it up.
Sir, this is about reforming the system of hiring in the federal government to ensure that merit is the lodestar of hiring decisions
As
as
per
opposed
the Supreme Court.
to other matters. Yes, sir.
This is a big deal, merit. Our country is going to be based on merit again. Can you believe it?
Mr. President, you had said you would end the Russia-Ukraine war. Where do things stand right now, and how do you intend?
Well, this is only half a day. I have another half a day left. We'll see. We
Sir.
want to get it done,
This is an order creating and implementing the Department of Governmental Efficiency, known as DOGE.
okay? That's a big one.
Is Elon Musk gonna get a West Wing office?
No, he's getting an office for about 20 people that we're hiring to make sure that these get implemented. We have a problem in this country. You sign an executive order, it doesn't get done for 6 months. As an example, when we allow the J6 hostages to go out, it might not be approved under the old days for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months. You know, they had a good ruling from the Supreme Court, and it's like nothing happened. That ruling was 6 months. Judges have been absolutely brutal. The prosecutors have been brutal. Nobody's ever treated people in this country like that.
Mr. President, are you commuting the sentences of anyone who assaulted a police officer on January 6th?
Well, we're looking at 2 police officers, actually, that Washington police officers who went after an illegal, and things happened, and they ended up putting them in jail. They got 5-year jail sentences. You know the case. And we're looking at that in order to give them we got to give them a break.
But is there clemency in your actions today for anyone?
Well, it would be a
who
pardon.
assaulted
That would be a
police
pardon.
officers?
The one I'm talking about would be a
Here
pardon.
you go, sir. This is
Should there
an,
be punishment for the people who assaulted law enforcement officers that day?
Well, I will say this. They've been in jail for a long time already. I see murderers in this country get 2 years, 1 year, and maybe no time. So they've already been in jail for a long time. These people have been destroyed. What they've done to these people is outrageous. There's rarely been anything like it in the history of our country. And even people that were aggressive, and in many cases, I believe they happen to be outside agitators, but, you know, what do I know, right? But I think they were outside agitators. There were outside agitators involved. And obviously the FBI was involved because Ray admitted the FBI was involved. Didn't he say 23 people, indirectly or directly, were involved? And it was then 26. That's a lot of people. Now we have, we got to take over a big portion of the city. What happened in Portland, where they burn down the city every day and people die? Nothing happened to anybody. But they go after these people violently. I mean, they're still going after brand new people. They found somebody else with a picture. There's never been, almost 100% of the people are convicted. 100%. It's Washington, D.C. People go into a trial and they say, oh, I have a wonderful lawyer and I didn't do anything wrong. And they end up in shackles almost immediately and jail. No, we're not going to let it happen.
About Greenland, you have shown interest in buying it, but is there any other option that would satisfy you?
About what?
Greenland, instead of buying it.
Finland?
Greenland.
Oh, Greenland. Greenland is a wonderful place. We need it for international security. And I'm sure that Denmark will come along. I think it's costing them a lot of money to maintain it, to keep it. The people of Greenland are not happy with Denmark, as you know. I think they're happy with us. We had representatives, my son and representatives went up there 2 weeks ago, and they like us. So we'll see what happens. But Greenland is necessary, not for us, it's necessary for international security. You have Russian boats all over the place. You have China boats all over the place, warships. And they can't maintain it.
When are you going to be talking to Vladimir Putin?
Who?
Do you plan to meet President Putin, sir?
I'll be meeting with President Putin.
When do you plan?
I don't know, I can't, it's being set up.
Your first trip foreign that might be, sir?
So first foreign trip, typically okay, but I did it with Saudi Arabia last time because they agreed to buy $450 billion worth of our product. I said, I'll do it, but you have to buy American product, and they agreed to do that. They bought $450 billion. It was the least reported story I've ever been involved
And
in.
now, where are you planning to go now?
Well, I don't know. Up it for all the inflation.
Mr. President, you say you were going
think
to
I'd
end the
probably go
wars first day. How do you plan to end the Ukraine war?
Well, we're going to try and get it done as quickly as possible.
Do you want to push Israel and Saudi
It should have
Arabia?
never started. You know, the war with Ukraine and Russia should have never started. It would have never started if I were president.
Will you push Israel and Saudi Arabia to normalize relations?
I don't think I have to push them. I think it's going to happen, but maybe not quite yet. But they'll end up being in the Accords, the Abraham Accords.
President Trump,
I think Saudi Arabia will end up being in the Abraham Accords.
This year?
Could be, but soon. Not in a very long way. Oh, look at that! It says TikTok.
President
My,
Trump,
my! What is that all about?
First, we have Alaska relating to unleashing Alaska's potential as an energy reservoir for the entire nation.
And what about Anwar?
I believe that would be included in aspects of the
So
order.
we're opening up Anwar.
on the TikTok piece, President Trump, you and your members of your team now used to warn about the dangers of TikTok spying on Americans. What changed that you're not worried about that anymore?
Well, it depends on the deal. I mean, I may not do the deal or I may do the deal. TikTok is worthless. Worthless if I don't approve it. It has to close. I learned that from the people that own it. If I don't do the deal, it's worthless, worth nothing. If I do the deal, it's worth maybe $1 trillion, $1 trillion. So if I do the deal I'm talking about doing it for the United States. If I do the deal for the United States, then I think we should get half.
The TikTok CEO.
In other words, I think the U.S. should be entitled to get half of TikTok. And congratulations, TikTok has a good partner. And that would be worth, could be $500 billion or something. It's crazy. The numbers are crazy. But it's worthless if the president doesn't sign, then it's worthless. If the president does sign, it's worth maybe $1 trillion. So I think, like a joint venture, I think we would have a joint venture with the people from TikTok. We'll see what happens. I mean, that's one of many ideas I've
The
had.
CEO is now, did he say that he's open to that idea?
Who?
The CEO of TikTok is around.
Oh, I think he'd probably like it. Because he's got nothing. I mean, they really have nothing. It's passed in Congress. It gives the president a right to make a deal or to close it. And we have 90 days to make that decision. But 50% of TikTok polices it a little bit or a lot. Depends on them. But remember, they make telephones in China. They make all sorts of things in China. Nobody ever complains about that. Here they're complaining about this. There's so many different products made in China, and nobody ever complained about it. The only one they complain about is TikTok. And TikTok is largely young people. I guess I have a warm spot for TikTok that I didn't have originally. But, I went on TikTok, and I won young people up by 36%, Peter. And Republicans typically don't do too well with young people. But it's a different Republican Party.
Would the U.S. government buy a portion of TikTok then, or how would it get that 50%?
No, you take 50% of TikTok for the approval that TikTok can continue in business. And they'd have a great partner. The U.S. would be their partner. But the U.S. essentially would be paid for doing. This person has called me about TikTok.
You wanted to block TikTok. Why did you change your mind?
Because I got to use it. And remember, TikTok is largely about kids, young kids. If China's going to get information about young kids, I don't know. I think, to be honest with you, I think we have bigger problems than that. But when you take a look at telephones that are made in China and all the other things that are made in China, military equipment made in China, TikTok, I think TikTok is not their biggest problem. But there's big value in TikTok if it gets approved. If it doesn't get approved, there's no value. So if we create that value, why aren't we entitled to like half?
Sir, if you don't continue to 90 days, will you shut them down?
Does Biden ever do news conferences like this? How many news conferences, Peter, has he done like this?
Like this?
None.
0.
And it would be 0 for the next infinity. For infinity, it would be 0.
Mr. President, you plan to talk to President Musk going to help implement the executive orders? I think you mentioned
No.
implementation. in your
Elon, no. Elon's very busy sending rocket ships up to various places with lots of satellites on them.
What is your reaction to the confirmation of Marco Rubio, and what does it mean for Latin America?
Which one?
Marco Rubio.
You said Marco.
Marco Rubio.
Yeah, I think he's great. I think Marco's doing a fantastic job. I think he's going to get a lot of votes. I think he's going to be at 90% or something. I mean, I'm hearing very good. People know him. They know him in the Senate. They know he's good. He's doing a good job. I don't know. I can't tell you. I don't know what's going to happen with that. He's got some very strong ideas, though. Marco.
You signed
Which one
the
did you sign,
TikTok
Mr.
order, right?
President?
Did you sign the TikTok order?
Yeah,
Yes, that was just.
President Marco Rubio's ideas is
just signed it.
How many
still
did you sign?
changing
Are you going to
Venezuela,
sign?
changing power. Are you still committed with Maduro leaving power in Venezuela?
Well, we're going to find out about that, too, because we're going to probably stop buying oil from Venezuela. We don't need their oil.
Another embargo like the first term?
Well, it could be, but we don't want to buy, we don't have to buy their oil. We have plenty of oil for ourselves, so
President Trump,
that'll change Venezuela quite a bit.
President Trump, there was a lot of concern about this during the campaign. A question that only works today. Are you a dictator on day one?
No, no. I can't imagine even being called that. No, I believe in the sanctity of the vote. The Democrats didn't because they cheated like dogs, but I believe in the sanctity, and this was too big to rig. This last election was just too big to rig.
Mr. President,
But
We believe in climate
really
change.
the opposite.
when do you plan to speak to President Putin?
Could be very soon.
And you talked a bit about Ukraine and Russia, but how long do you think it would take to end that conflict? And
I have to speak to President Putin. We're going to have to find out. He can't be thrilled. He's not doing so well. I mean, he's grinding it out, but most people thought that war would have been over in about 1 week. And now you're into 3 years, right? So he can't be thrilled. It's not making him look very good. Now, eventually, I mean, it's a big machine, so things will happen. But I think he'd be very well off to end that war. We have numbers, about 700,000 Ukrainian soldiers are killed. Russia's bigger, they have more soldiers to lose. But that's no way to run a country.
What did your TikTok order do, Mr. President?
It just gave me the right to sell it. Essentially with TikTok, I have the right to either sell it or close it. And we'll make that determination. And we may have to get an approval from China too, I'm not sure. But I'm sure they'll approve it. And if they don't approve it, it would be somewhat of a hostile act, I think. But it's good for China if it gets approved.
Mr. President, so you're not guaranteeing that TikTok will be around after 90 days from today?
No, but it could very well be. It makes sense for it to be, because it's got tremendous value. But if we create the value by approving, in other words, that approval gives it tremendous value. If that's the case, then we should be entitled to 50% as a country. You understand? You haven't heard that one before, right? That's called a joint venture. And nobody ever thought that way before.
Your partner.
Well, I don't know. I think you have a lot of people that would be interested in TikTok with the United States as a partner.
Mr. President, what was it like walking into the Oval Office this evening?
Oh, what a great feeling. One of the better feelings I've ever had.
Do you like this town better now than in 2017?
Well, we're very experienced, good people. I've dealt with some very bad people, and I know who the bad ones are and the good ones are. Don't forget, I was very business. And people used to say, who's worse, a politician or a vicious real estate developer? And I'd always say, the real estate developer is far worse. But after about 3 months and getting to know scum like Adam Schiff and other people like that, I said, no, actually, real estate people are quite nice by comparison.
You said you plan to speak with President Putin soon. What about President Zelensky, and what's your message?
Yeah, I would, but he's told me he wants to make a deal. I mean, Zelensky wants to make a deal. I don't know, Putin. I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal. I think Russia's going to be in big trouble. You take a look at their economy, you take a look at the inflation in Russia. So I would hope, I would hope he wants to make a deal.
Mr. President, are you keeping U.S. sanctions on Russia until he makes a deal?
Well, sanctions or tariffs. I think the word tariff is much better because it keeps your dollar stronger. I think tariffs are more effective. I mean, I use sanctions on Iran. Iran was broke. When I left office, Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, none. They were flat broke. And October 7th would have never happened. And I think you all know that. It would have never happened. They had no money. Now they're rich, but they're weakened in a different way. I would say that the one attack by Israel really set them back. It really set them back. The pagers, and others. The attack on air defense was a bad attack for Iran.
What are you signing now, sir?
It's an executive order relating to reforms to the federal workforce, including to the senior executive service.
We're getting rid of all of the cancer. I call it cancer. The cancer caused by the Biden administration.
How confident are you, Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire in Gaza and conclude the 3 phases of this deal?
I'm not confident. That's not our war, it's their war, but
Apologize.
I'm not confident. But I think they're very weakened on the other side.
Do you support the 2-state
Gaza,
solution?
boy, I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive way.
Do you plan to help rebuilding Gaza?
I might. Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location. On the sea, best weather. Everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have, well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead, by the way, right? Most of them are dead. So you can't have that.
Mr. President, on TikTok, sir, do you pause any decision on Chinese tariffs until you know what the resolution on TikTok will be? Are those things
No,
connected
if
at all?
China didn't approve it, we could put tariffs on China. Don't forget, China charges us tariffs, and we charge them very little, except for what I did. I put a lot of, we took in hundreds of billions of dollars. But until I came along, China never paid 10 cents to this country. They ripped us off, and they never paid anything. But like, if we wanted to make a deal with TikTok, and it was a good deal, and China wouldn't approve it, then I think ultimately they'd approve it, because we'd put tariffs on China. Maybe. I'm not saying I would, but you certainly could do that. And if we said, well, if you're not going to approve it, then that's a certain hostility, and we'll put tariffs of 25, 30, 40, 50%, even 100%. And if we
Living presidents a couple times in the last few months. If you ever had to call on one of them for advice about anything that's going on here, which one would you call?
It's an interesting. Well, I thought Bill Clinton was a very good politician. I don't think he was used properly. I think they disrespected him. When Hillary was running, he came back and he said, you better get up to Michigan and Wisconsin. You remember that, Peter? Every house has a Trump sign on it. And they all laughed at him because the Republicans hadn't won Michigan or Wisconsin for decades, long time. And they all laughed at Bill Clinton. Like, the hell does he know? And he turned out to be right, because I won both of them. And then we just won both in this election, too. We won Wisconsin and Michigan and every other swing state. We won. But Bill Clinton he had a great political sense, I think.
You looked like you were having a good conversation with President Obama at President
I
Carter's
was.
funeral.
And you'd like to know what it was? Oh.
Everybody.
Everybody wants to know. I know, I wouldn't want to, but we were having some crazy conversation. Why do you asking a question like that? I don't think you want to know. You might not.
Tell us what you just signed.
You might be insulted.
It's an executive order relating to holding former government officials accountable for unlawful disclosure of sensitive information. This next.
It's a big one. You know what that allows you to do? That means you can do whatever you have to do to get out of that problem. And we do have that kind of an emergency.
President Trump, at some point will you use your powers of the presidency to tell Americans who are concerned about drones?
No, because I just got here.
What do you think?
I just came here. I've been here for 15 minutes now.
Do people listening, because this is going out live.
And I got to read this letter too, because of you. I found this letter.
I can read it for you.
It's interesting. Yeah, I know you would. Your father would too.
But is it anything with these drones? Is it anything that people need to be
To
working
find out what it is and tell the people.
And can you commit to some kind of...
In fact, I'd like to do that. Could we find out what that was? Yeah, what do we? Maybe they were testing things. I don't know why they wouldn't have said what it was.
And with the events today and yesterday, was everything moved inside just for cold weather, or was there some kind of security concern?
No security, because they had everything shut down to drones. You know, you can shut that down pretty easily if you're sophisticated. They're very sophisticated, these people. No, it was just cold weather, and we made a good move because, first of all, I thought it was incredible in the Capitol today. You know why I liked it? Because I got great reviews on that speech. I got great reviews. Can you? Fake news is changing.
Unleashing energy production.
Yeah, unleashing energy production. But I thought it was, I think having it in the Capitol is great. It, obviously, you can take care of the people you have to take care of. The city was booming. And if we would have, but when you stood outside for 10 minutes, people were running back in. It was really cold and really windy. The wind brings it down a lot. So we made the right decision. You couldn't have stayed, I don't think you could have had it out. You know how cold it was today. It was, people went out for a little while just to test it. They couldn't stay out more than 10 minutes. They all came back in. So we would have had a disaster if we did that, and people would have been hurt.
President, the unlawful disclosure, EO, is that related to the Hunter Biden situation?
Which one?
The one on unlawful disclosures by federal officials, is that related to?
No, I think it's just more general than that. It's not Hunter Biden. I was surprised that President Biden would go and pardon his whole family, because that makes him look very guilty. You know, I could have pardoned my family. I could have pardoned myself, my family. I said, if I do that, it's going to make me look very guilty. I don't think I'd be sitting here, frankly. If I did that, I don't think I'd be sitting here right now, because I would have shown that you're guilty. But by pardoning his brother or brothers, by pardoning all of those people that he pardoned, by pardoning J6, the Unselect Committee, they destroyed all of the documents. They deleted all of the information. There's no information. And a lot of the information pertains to Nancy Pelosi, because she was given 100, I mean, you know this, it's on tape with her daughter. Nancy Pelosi was responsible for not taking advantage of 10,000 soldiers or 1,000. You wouldn't have you could have used 400. It was a relatively small crowd. It wasn't the crowd that was at the mall. It was a small crowd. So I was a little bit surprised that he did it, because it makes him look guilty. I mean, he's going to have to live with it. Now, with that being said, it's unbelievable precedent. Unbelievable. Now maybe every president that leaves office, they're going to pardon every person they ever met, so they don't have some lunatic like deranged Jack Smith, who's a total lunatic, by the way. Not a smart guy either, he's a dummy. But we beat the hell out of him, and I helped my reputation.
Do you think you'd have to do the same?
I wouldn't want to do that, no. I think it makes you look very guilty. I think it makes Biden look very bad, very weak, and very guilty. And, I mean, he pardoned everybody. How about this J6 committee? Why is he pardoning them? The reason is because if you delete and destroy documentation, everything, they have nothing, because they were guilty as hell. They rigged it. It was a rigged deal. And when you do that, they look very bad. But I was a little surprised. She lost by the greatest margin in the history of a politician running for Congress, like 40 points. The reason it was the greatest is because anybody losing that badly is going to drop out. But she's a nut job. She doesn't drop out. You know, she just keeps chugging forward. And she lost by almost 40 points. That's the biggest number anybody's ever lost by. But why would Biden do that? He pardoned her and pardoned everybody. The reason is that they destroyed documents. And if you're even in a civil case, which this wouldn't be, I mean, people go to jail for a... What's this one?
That's unleashing American energy, sir. It relates to easing permitting processes and other regulatory systems to ensure that we can produce energy efficiently to drive the American economy forward.
Yeah.
President Trump, looking around the office, we noticed some changes from the way that Biden had it set up. Can you confirm that you have added back the Diet Coke play?
I think this, we First of all, I just got here. So my people came in. They have extraordinary decorator sense, right? Let me just see some of the pictures. Oh, that's a good one. I could live with him. I could live with George Washington, I can tell you. I could live with Thomas Jefferson. I could live with most of them. They took a very safe route. They don't have any bad ones up there.
Withdrawing from
What
the
is this one?
Withdrawing from the World Health Organization, sir?
$500 million to World Health when I was here, and I terminated it. China with 1.4 billion people. We have 350. We have, nobody knows what we have because so many people came in illegally, but let's say we have 325. They had 1.4 billion. They were paying 39 million, we were paying 500 million. It seemed a little unfair to me. So that wasn't the reason, but I dropped out. They offered me to come back for 39 million. In theory, it should be less than that, but you come back for 39 million. They wanted us back so badly, so we'll see what happens.
Mr. President,
Pretty sad though, think of it. China pays 39 million and we pay 500 million. And China's a bigger country.
Mr. President, you spoke about inflation today in your remarks. What action will have a direct impact for Americans on their everyday costs to bring the costs down?
The biggest thing and factor for inflation is energy. They screwed up my energy policy, and then they went back to it. You know, they heard it really badly, and then they went back to it, and they started drilling more, but by that time it was too late. Many of these things that we're signing and that Doug Burgum is going to be signing, and Chris Wright, who's phenomenal, you know, Department of Energy, we're going to be taking a lot, we're going to make a lot of money from energy. We have more than anybody else. We're going to make a lot of money from energy. We're going to make a lot of money from tariffs. You know, European Union charges us, they have a VAT tax of 20%, but it's really much higher than that. And that's the equivalent, almost the equivalent of a tariff. And they're tough. They're very tough. They don't take our cars. They don't take our farm product. They don't take almost anything. And yet we take their cars and we take their farm product. We take a lot from them. So, you know, we have like a $300 billion deficit with the European Union. So we'll straighten that out with either tariffs or they have to buy our oil. The one thing they can do, our oil and gas, the one thing they can do to catch up quickly, buy our oil and gas.
Will you travel,
And they should do that.
Will you travel to China this year?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, I've had the invite.
Mr.
President, she's
President,
invited
I would
you
do it,
to
yeah,
come this
I
year.
would do it.
talking about the European Union and the tariffs, like, what do you mean when you say that European Union country like is part of BRICS?
That are what?
BRICS. Is it
Oh, BRICS. No, I was talking about BRICS. BRICS are 6 nations. I think it's 7 nations. And they were looking to do a number in the United States. And if they do that, they won't be happy about what's going to happen to them.
Are you still considering
Wrap it.
Mr. President.
Because essentially all countries take advantage of the U.S.
This
We
is-
don't make any good deals in the U.S. It's amazing with almost, not all, there are a couple, I won't tell you their names because I don't want them to find out about it because they'll feel stupid. But there are a couple of countries that, actually don't make money with us. But I don't want to let you know because they'll immediately change that. But we're gonna do, I tell you what, our country has an amazing economic future. I really believe that.
what kind of universal tariff if you did do one?
Well, you'd put a universal tariff on anybody doing business in the United States because they're coming in and they're stealing our wealth, they're stealing our jobs, they're stealing our companies, they're hurting our companies. So you put a tariff on to keep them from doing that.
Mr. President, you surrounded yourself with a whole bunch of billionaires today. President Biden, as in his farewell address, warned about an oligarchy. I was wondering if you could respond to that.
Well, he had a lot of guys, and then they found out that he didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and I think they deserted him. They deserted him, those same guys. Look, I don't make pretenses, smart guys, but there are a lot of smart people around, but they did desert him. They were all with him, every one of them. Now they're all with me, I don't know. It's not going to get anything from me, I don't need money. But I do want the nation to do well, and they're smart people, and they have, they create a lot of jobs. And if they don't do it, China's going to do it. You know, what they've done is they've taken industries and they've taken it away. They outsmarted China. And, you know, we sort of like that. It's okay. They've done a great job, a lot of them.
The World Health Organization, you were the president during COVID. Don't you see the importance of organization like that to coordinate a global response? in
Sure,
case-
I do, but not when you're being ripped off like we are by the World Health. World Health ripped us off. Everybody rips off the United States, and that's it. It's not going to happen.
One last one, sir. This is your Martin Luther
Thank you,
King Day
guys.
proclamation.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Press.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Let's go. Thanks, Press. Thank you, guys.
Mark, this is Martin Luther
Let's go, guys.
What are we doing on this stuff?
All right, guys, let's go.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Recording? Is this off? Recording?
Yeah, we'll come.